Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on how to create forms on OwlNest. We'll be going over how to navigate to forms, the reviewer process, how to create your forms, and finally, how to review and analyze form submissions. To navigate to forms, first make sure you have forms access. By default, only the primary contact, secondary student leader, and club sponsor should have forms access. If you want to gain forms access, ask your primary contact and they can grant you access through roster management. If you need more information on how to view and update access settings, please check out our roster management training. Once you've checked you have forms access, switch into the Manage view and select your organization. From there, open your organization door and select Forms. That'll take you to Manage Forms. Here you can create new forms with Create Form, edit forms by clicking on the form's name, edit a form's properties through Properties, duplicate forms through Copy, share a form's URL through Share, and finally, you can export form submissions through Export. Now to create a form, select Create Form. The first step is to fill out the basic form properties. First, name your form. This is the name that will be displayed as people complete your form. Then determine whether you want your form to be active. If you leave the box unchecked, then users will not be able to see or access the form. So while you're working on creating the form, you might leave the box unchecked, but once your form is ready, you must make the form active so people can access it. You must also set the start-end time, which determines the submission window for your form. Another setting is to decide whether you want public users to be able to submit the form. Public users are anyone, even people who don't have OwlNest accounts. Keep in mind that enabling this setting disables the feature to restrict the number of submissions a user may submit. However, if you do allow public users to submit the form, you also have the option to collect their personal information such as their name and email address. If you leave the Allow Multiple Submission box unchecked, users can only submit the form once. Next, choose the level of submission restrictions you want to have. This feature lets you restrict the form to users within your organization that hold a specific position. If you want the form to be available to any user in your community, don't select any submission restrictions. The submission approval process feature determines whether a form will go through an approval denial process where they are marked as pending until processed. If you select no review required, form submissions will be automatically marked as received without any approval process. Submission approval process is a useful feature to give feedback to users regarding the status of their form submission. We'll go more into detail what the submission approval process looks like in the reviewer section of the webinar. Furthermore, reviewer workflow allows you to create levels to your review process, wherein each level of reviewer must review the form before subsequent levels are notified of the submission. Submitter-identified reviewers allow submitters to add reviewers to their submission. For example, you could ask submitters to add the names of faculty advisors or club sponsors to review their form submission before it is approved by the organization. This could be helpful during the elections process and you wanted club sponsors to review a candidate's application form before approving them to be a candidate. You can even add optional instructions to specify whom submitters should choose to be their reviewers. Now on to the review process and reviewers itself. Reviewers help you review the content of a user submission and give their opinion about whether they think a form submission should be approved or denied. Reviewers can only be added to forms with the approval process enabled. To add reviewers, go to the Reviewers tab on your form's properties page and make sure you have submission and approval process enabled. Clicking the Reviewers tab takes you to the Reviewers page where you can search reviewers by their name in the search bar or filter them by their status as voting or non-voting, and then finally add reviewers through the person-shaped icon. When you click the person-shaped icon, you can then add any member of your organization as a reviewer. Reviewers will receive notifications when new submissions and will have access to view and comment on form submissions. Furthermore, you can choose to allow this reviewer to have voting access to the form. Voting reviewers can additionally provide feedback using a thumbs up, thumbs down visual to the submission. Last but not least, if your form has reviewer workflow enabled, you can also select the workflow level for the reviewer when adding them to the form. Higher levels, such as level 2, won't be notified of submissions until all voting reviewers on level 1 have voted. That's pretty much it for how reviewers and the review process works. Now to start building your form, go to the page list. Click on your form's name from the Manage Forms page and go to Page Properties, or from the Form Properties page, click the Save and Add Questions button. The page list will show you the different pages you have for your form. Hover over a page to move or delete it and click on the page to edit it. Add pages by clicking the Add Page icon. You can also add pages to before and after your current page. To name your page, go to Page Properties. Naming pages are a good way to delineate the different sections to your form. When you scroll down on a specific page's page, there'll be options to add different questions. Choose the question type that best matches the question you want to ask and the response you want to receive. Here's some more detailed information about the types of questions and what their functions are. For example, the checkbox list is a multiple-choice question that allows users to choose more than one option, whereas the radio button list is a multiple-choice question that allows users to select only one option. The text field is an open text response. You can alter the number of rows to provide the user a larger space to write in for longer answers. You can also use the text field question to utilize validation to ensure a specific format of response is entered. A drop-down list is a multiple-choice question where users can only choose one option. The difference between the drop-down and radio button question is that the user has to click the drop-down to view the available choices. Instructions is a method of providing additional instructions or information to the user. Instructions don't require any action on the part of the user. The single checkbox is a method to provide the user a set of terms and conditions that they need to agree to before they can proceed on the form. You can input the terms that need to be agreed upon, and the user will be provided a single checkbox to confirm their agreement. Ranking provides the user multiple answer choices for them to rank. You can also determine the maximum number of items they need to rank. Last but not least, file upload allows the users to upload a file from their computer. Files must be under 4 megabytes and the uploader accepts most file types. If you prefer a specific file type, make sure to indicate this within the instructions of the question. You can also add additional question options once a question is created by clicking on the blue Edit button. Some question options are making the question required. Selecting the required box will make the question mandatory for users before they can proceed to further questions. This option is available for all question types. Shuffle answers is for the checkbox list and radio button list question types, which lets you shuffle your answers. For example, if you input the answer choices as an alphabetical list but want the answer choices to appear random, you can shuffle them. Note this will not shuffle the answers every time a different user fills out the form. Minimum and maximum answers. If you're utilizing the checkbox list, you can identify the minimum or maximum number of answers a user can select. Specifically for the checkbox list, radio buttons, and ranking questions, there are tools such as the Include Text area allows you to provide additional space for users to write in an answer. For example, you may want to include an other option to a multiple choice question but want users to write in their additional option. Include Tooltip. The tooltip allows you to hover over the answer choice to read additional information about it. The additional information will appear automatically next to the answer choice. And then include additional text. Similar to the tooltip, additional text allows you to put in additional information about an answer choice. The difference between the two is in how the information appears. With additional text, an information icon appears next to answer choice, and clicking the icon will open up a box with the additional information. A particularly useful feature is the validation option that is part of the text field question type. This basically helps you get responses in a specific format. For example, if you're collecting people's contact information and you want to get everyone's phone numbers in a uniform fashion, you would use validation. To add conditional logic to your form, you first need to have multiple pages to add the logic to. Then choose the page properties of the page you would only like to appear to some users based on their previous responses. In the page properties, select conditions and add condition. Then choose selection question. This lets you select any of the questions that exist in the form prior to the page you are currently viewing. Then choose a specific response you want that will lead them to the current page you're on. For example, if you want to ask a specific question based on the user's age, you would choose a question asking the user's age in a previous page and then set the response to be the age range that corresponds to the set of questions you want to ask. Furthermore, you can add other conditions that work together like with and or. And means that both conditions you specified must be met in order for the page to display, while or means only one of the conditions listed will have to be met in order for the page to display. In addition, you can also group logic to treat a set of conditions as one. This is helpful to consolidate your logic, or if you wanted a group of questions to be treated as one condition. For example, if you wanted to treat the condition an officer of the club who is an upperclassman is one condition instead of several simplifies your logic. Finally, you can decide how the group conditions are evaluated. True means the group conditions are met, while false means those conditions were not met. To publish your form to users, go to Form Properties and select Share Form. Make sure your form is active and open within the submission date range. Then share the link to the form in whatever medium you want. You can also use the messaging feature of OwlNest. To get a refresher on how to send messages in OwlNest, check out our messaging webinar. To approve forms in bulk, click on Submissions next to your form name. This takes you to the form submissions page where you can select which forms you want to approve in bulk. To print and save one submission, switch into Manage and scroll to General Forms and view all. Then select the submission you want to print and click Print. From there, you can save as a PDF and save the submission or print it out. To mass export file uploads, select the Export File Attachments to download a zip file of all the file uploads for all the form submissions of that form. To mass export form submissions, select Export, then go to Downloads in the user drawer to download the form submissions. To export the submissions, click Export in the Managing Forms page, then open your user drawer and select Downloads. Find your form name and select the download icon to download submission as a .csv file. We hope that was helpful and thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or want to request a consultation, please send us an email at owlnest@rice.edu and follow us on Instagram at riceowlnest. Thank you once again and we hope to see you soon. Bye!